Hello everyone. I hope you can hear us. I think everything is working. Last Sunday, I unfortunately had some technical difficulties. Hopefully, this time the stream will run smoothly. If at any point the stream suddenly stops mid-sentence or something, just wait 1 or 2 minutes. This will probably be something with my internet connection. Last time I had that 2 times, unfortunately, but we will carry on anyways. Today I'm joined by Martin again.
Hello everyone!
And yeah, he will help me get through the stream. My name is McKay, and well, I joined the modding group some years ago. I think it was 2007, so that's a long time ago. And originally I started with audio, and then I got into some coding for some new units and some new features. And I ended up trying the particle editor and grew to really like it, even though it's a bit buggy. And this is basically what I will show you today. So for those of you who were there in the last stream last week, you will already know some of the things that I'm going to do today, but I will try whenever I do something to explain what exactly I'm doing. And feel free to send in your questions, and we will try to answer them as soon as possible. Okay, so today, as you can see, I already opened the model editor, and we have a model of Adria from the Ori faction, and of course something is missing there. I think a lot of you know that, of course, this needs to look more like this or like this. So basically what we will be doing today is adding a flame effect on the model, and yeah, let's start right away.
And we have Ellie. Ellie came here.
Right, nice. Hi.
Can you hear us, Ellie?
I think his audio is still off.
Let's give him some time.
Yeah. Alright, let's actually switch to the particle editor, which I closed before, so I will open that.
Before it opens, I have one question. Right now you have the Adria unit open in Diallo Viewer, and now you will be working in the particle editor to create the flaming effect. The question is, will Diallo Viewer update automatically, or will you be forced to turn it off and on again in order to the particle to actually be visible?
Yeah, basically the easiest thing to do is just go to game and set the path for the mod that you want to load again. So in this case, I'll just, if I click on it again, it will reload the model with all the textures and all the particle effects. So this is the easiest and fastest way to do it. So as soon as you change something in the particle editor and save it, you can just go in here and click on the mod that you want to load, and then it will reload that model.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, I'm here. Sorry, my microphone was bugging.
Hello, Ellie.
No problem. Great that you're here. So we already started, and I explained a bit about how to open some particle effects, or rather how to, when you change something, some particle effect for a model in particular. So the easiest way to do it is to go into game, then choose your mod, and that way it will reload that model again with the new particle effect. So let's start with the particle effect itself. So first of all, let's choose our texture again, which will be the particle master from the vanilla game. We will mainly use that because it basically gives us everything. If we take a look at the model again, at the texture, I mean. Like last time, this is the entire model, the entire texture library for particle effects that are used in the base game, in the vanilla game. These are basically 64 small textures.
May I ask a
yeah.
question? How do you know how to make it like a multiple texture like this one, but with new pictures? Do you edit this one, or can you make a new one?
So normally I just create a new basically picture file with just the one texture that I want to have. I don't do it that way like they did it in the base game. Although you could of course do it. It would probably be nice for resource management of the game. Probably be sometimes better to actually put it into one file instead of
Well,
every.
it would help because it would only load one texture for every effect. But I was wondering if you knew how to do it, because in the particle editor you have like a index to choose from to get from one picture to another.
Yeah.
And how do you create this index?
Well, the game just assumes that. So basically, you tell the game how many elements are there, and it basically has to be quadratic. So you can have, for example, 4 by 4 rows, which is something that we will see. I can actually show you in one of the explosion textures, which you will see in a few seconds. So basically, that texture is a 4 by 4 texture, which has 16 separate textures. And if you tell the game that there are 16 texture elements in there, it will automatically assume that it's quadratic with and split it into 4 by 4 pieces. And that way you can, if you know how many there are, if you tell the particle editor how many there are, you can just say that I want to have, for example, number 3 of the index, which would be the third in the row. Actually, it would be number 2 because the index starts at 0.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's not embedded in the picture, but it's the program itself that knows which one.
Exactly. It will always assume that the texture that you're using is quadratic, and it will then divide basically the picture that you give it into how many you tell them there are, how many elements there are. You have to make sure, if you create your own texture, you of course have to make sure that every element in there takes the exact same space, and that space is also quadratic, because otherwise if it's more wider than high, then there will be problems and the game will not correctly recognize where the texture starts and where it ends, or where the element starts and where it ends.
I see.
So let's actually, basically when you actually start up the particle editor, the default texture that it uses will be the one from the base game, but unfortunately sometimes it doesn't actually find that texture, so that's why I have to show him where the texture lies. Now it will always use the index 0, which is this. Let me actually disable the ground so you can see, which is this smoky kind of texture, and we will be using that for our fire because actually fire has some smoky elements, but also the fire itself, this fits for the fire. So let's actually make the background black so that we can see this better. And then, well, this is not really a fiery color, so we want to make it like yellow, maybe red. So to do that, we will go into the blue channel, put it into none, so that we can actually change it. As long as it's put into red, so this is locked on to red, then it will take the same or will use the same values as the red channel, and by default the green and blue channels are always locked to the red channel, so that's why I have to put it into none, so I can actually change that. Then I will select both keyframes and basically decrease the value, make it, well, we can go very low, maybe 0.2, and also take out a bit of the green so that we get more of a yellow red kind of color, like that. Yeah, or maybe a bit bright, maybe a bit brighter. Yeah. So this is a thing that takes a lot of back and forth and a lot of trying to get the right color and to get the right yeah, glow basically. The thing is, as long as you only have one particle, and basically by default it will display one particle per second, which lives for 1 second, so you will always see one particle by default. If you actually stack that up to 2, for example, when you will see 2, then it will get brighter because the appearance is set to additive, so the more color you add, the brighter it gets, as opposed to transparent, where it will be more like an actual physical object, or more like smoke, for example. But because we want it to be fire and we want it to be bright, we will put it to additive. Now, for now, we will let it be with 1 particle per second, just so that we can get the physics, etc. right. And as soon as we're done with that, we will increase the particle count, and we will actually link it to the model so that it is distributed randomly on the model, and we will see how that looks later. Let's actually start with moving it, because of course fire is not still and we want it to move somewhere. So let's set the initial speed to, well, let's actually let it on exact for now and make it, for example, 5. So C is the C axis would be for vertical, and in this case we want it to rise. And of course now fire 1 second is not really enough for it to go somewhere, so let's actually put that to maybe maximum lifetime to 3 seconds. And also maybe actually let's not use exact, because we want to have a bit of randomness in there. Let's use sphere, no, cylinder, and that way we can set 1 for the height, which will be what was the z-axis before, and 1 for the radius, which will then be, so we'll go into a bit of random directions. Yeah, and actually you see it's now popping in and popping out. I don't really like that. Of course, fire basically we need to fade this out, so we will do that by going into the channels again, and actually we will take the last keyframe and put it to 0, and also we'll do that on all channels. So let's see. So that way the fire will fade out. Now it also pops in, so basically we'll have to do the same at the beginning, but of course if I do that you won't see anything again, so we will have to set a keyframe in between. Let's just use the 50% mark and then drag the front one in, and I have to do the same thing for the other one. So let's actually where did I set this to 0.8. So let's actually set this to 50% and 0.8.
And why is the flame now green from the beginning?
That's because I started with the red channel, but the green channel at the beginning was still at 1.0 or 0.8 actually. So there was more green at the beginning, and right now, because I didn't set a blue channel, when you look closer you will see that it will start with a blue flame at the beginning.
Yes, 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 I can see it.
So I'll have to do the same here, basically. Check again what did I set it to. Let's actually set it to 0.2 so that it's a clear value, and 50, and then take the one at the front. Okay, so now it fades in and it fades out. What could we do next? Now, normally fire would have something like it would be bigger at the beginning at the ground where it starts, and it would be smaller where it ends. So like a classical fireplace, and we can do that with the scale. Let's actually go and use the last keyframe that's already here and put it to 10, for example, to see how that looks. Now we're getting to a place where it might actually make sense to increase the particle count just so to see how it will actually look if there are more. Well, that's maybe a bit too many. If there are more particles. Alright. That doesn't look bad. Also, the separate particles are still a bit static, so let's actually give them a bit of rotation so that we have a bit more movement. And actually make that direction random, so that they rotate in a random direction, and then we can go into rotation speed, and maybe let's actually speed it up as it gets older. 1.5 is maybe a bit too much.
Well, it already starts to look like flames of everlasting fire.
Yeah. Okay. That's nice already. Now let's add a bit of variation into that. So first of all, we can vary the size of the different particles by setting a minimum scale. Most of the time I will do 70 or 80%, so just that some particles start a bit smaller than others, and we can let me actually check. We can also do the same thing for the lifetime, so that some particles disappear sooner than others. Yeah. Okay, now let's actually test it on the model quickly to see how it looks right now. Before I do that, we will link... No, we will not. We will choose random vertex as emitter mode, and that way it will go through the model, and on random polygons on the model it will spawn this effect. So in theory there should be fire all over the model now, and we will test that.
Poor Adria.
Well, I mean, doesn't she like her flamey appearance?
I guess. She's kinda hot.
So let's actually check how the proxy is called. It's called p_adria_flames. So we will set that as a name. p_adria flames. And we will save this. And then we will open up the... let's actually disable the placeholder effects. So this is our effect right now, and as you can see, we overestimated the size a bit. So the particle effect is way too big, or the particles itself, they are a bit big. So we can actually fix that very easily. You can either do that by going into the particles themselves and scale them down here. If you already have finished an effect and then you notice that it is way too big and you don't want to go through all of the separate emitters and change the scale, you can actually go here and rescale the emitters. No, wait, it's not. Where was it? No, it's rescale, I think. For some reason it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Oh no, it's actually here. It's rescale particle system. I'm a bit confused because normally I use the German interface, so the naming seems to be a bit different. And here you have two things. You can either change the duration, which is useful if you want to, if you have an effect and you want to slow down or speed up the entire effect. And the other thing is what I told you, is to change the particle size, and that way it will automatically decrease or increase all values based on the percentage that you put into here. So I'll do it differently. I'll actually select both points. I'll actually wait. No, that's not so easy. As you can see, the interface is a bit wonky. So we'll start here, put it to 10 and use the endpoint and put it to maybe 5, so then we would have exactly half of it. Another thing is, of course, that even though there are flames here, it's missing a bit of the glow that is to be expected from a fire, especially from a very fiery fire from the Ori. So let's actually add a second particle effect to this. Now, when you add another effect, this is a good time to start naming your effect. So let's call that flames, and second one glow. And also, when you put the particle effect into the preview, when you add something new, it will not show up in the existing particles that you set. It will show up when you set a new, and you set one by holding shift and then clicking into the particle editor. If you just hold shift, it will appear wherever your mouse is. So this is the second effect, and we will take a look at our texture again. And the third one is probably something that we could use for our glow. So let's go back into the particle editor. Now the third one means that the index would be 2, so we will put the index into 2. And you can also enable and disable emitters or particles right here. So let's disable the flames for now. And now we have the glow here. Of course, we need to change its color a bit. And we will do the exact same thing as before, but we will fade in and fade out from the beginning now. So we will set a keyframe in the middle and also somewhere on the middle height, which will start to make it look like it's blinking. And do the same for green, but somewhere here. And for red. Actually, let's decrease blue a bit so that it's more yellow. And maybe that's a bit bright in general, so let's maybe do just half of every value. So 0.3 maybe here, and let's just do 1. Okay. And let's do 2 maybe. Oh, of course, I can't see that if there are 2 particles always. Okay. Okay, let's do the same thing here. Emit it on random vertices, and let's see how it looks. So right now, of course there are not many particles right now, and also they are a bit too fast now. We decreased their size, but we didn't decrease their speed. So of course, it now looks like the particles are flying away very fast. So we will need to fix the speed next. And of course, what we will also need are a bit more particles in general. Because it only spawns a few of the glow particles right now. Of course, we just set it to, I think, 1. So it's just 1 particle every second. So let's actually increase that now. Let's make maybe...
Okay, are you trying to make Algeria?
Hmm?
Are you trying to make Algeria the ascended version?
Yeah.
Yep, I'm watching your stream. And also, it looks good, surprisingly.
Yeah, I think it looks quite nice actually.
No, it does. But there's one thing you're kind of missing. Her... Yeah, it does.
Okay, let me just check something.
But why did you decide to make Algeria?
Why not?
True.
Hey, there's so many people now.
Yeah, I'm also surprised.
Okay, let me continue with the particle effect. So, I've increased the particle count. Let's also do the same thing as with the other one before and do a bit of variation in the scale and also in the lifetime.
Is there a way for the particles to make an actual light? I mean light source that would make shadows?
Unfortunately not. They didn't really have, or in that version of the engine that Empire at War uses, it didn't yet have real illumination of things. Basically, there's always one light source, which is the sun of a map. Yeah. So let's actually change the physics of the flames. So maybe do a radius of 2 and a height of 3. And again, a lot of back and forth, so we'll have to go back and check again. Disable the default particle. And we will already have a lot of glow. Now, unfortunately, we'll have to try if we can use one of the other emitter modes. Because there are a lot of particles in round shapes like the head. That means that it's more likely for a particle head to spawn around there, which means that there will be more particle effects on very round objects like the head, or just in general on shapes with a lot of vertices, with a lot of polygons. Let's actually check if it does it with random meshes. It's still mostly centered around the head, actually. So
Well, in the movie, most of the flames were actually around her back. So if you would be able somehow to push the emitter a little bit backwards, I guess that would look almost like it looked in the movie.
well, I can't really. Or actually, what I could do is, instead of distributing it randomly over the model, I could just do an area effect and maybe push it a bit to the back. Let's actually look, check. Aren't there some animations?
I think the problem is also that there's so many glow in the center that it's not transparent enough for the
Yeah.
face.
Okay. Also, I still think that everything is still a bit too big.
Yes, it is.
So, let's do something about that right now. Let's put this to maybe 2, this to 5. Let's maybe do it even smaller. Let's go to 0 directly and get 3, maybe. Go to physics, 0.5, and maybe 1. And for the glow, let's do maybe 5, and also make it more transparent by reducing the brightness overall. 1.5 maybe. And now we have to zoom a bit closer in the particle editor if we actually want to see something. Okay, maybe a bit more of the flames.
Yeah, now it's a little bit smaller.
Yeah. Now we need a lot more flames, basically. Also, what we could do is set the glow to follow the particle itself. Not the particle, the instance that it spawns, so the model itself, at least for the glow. And let's
I have another question: is the picture you used there for the flames? Did you do it yourself?
You mean this one?
The texture part.
Oh, the texture. No, the texture is from the base game. So the texture is from our. Let me show you quickly. The texture is from here. So this is the base texture set that the game comes with and that the game uses for its particle effects.
Because I feel like your flames are too much flames and not less magical. Because if you see in the reference you have where she appears, it's a more fluid kind of.
Yeah.
I don't.
I know it's a more now flames because it's basically a gas and it's also wavy like a gas. That's something that you can't really do in the particle editor. What you could potentially do is actually use flame animation or something and create something similar as the explosion textures where it is an animation. So that way you would have the waviness. I don't really have one for that, so this would be something that you would have to create. And, well, it's just a bit, probably a bit much. But we'll see, maybe if I get my hands on a nice flame texture or flame video, it would be probably. We'll see.
But you are completely capable of doing those kind of images, or would you need help if sometime you need images like?
I would need so basically this is done by from videos normally. I would need a proper source material and probably someone helping me with setting it up or basically creating the texture, because there aren't really any good tools to doing the tile textures. Yeah.
Okay, because I did some particle effect on Unity, and I had to do some pictures, and some did with shaders, but other with hand-drawn stuff. So if you need any help on that.
Yeah, let's talk afterwards. So, well, actually,
We have a question. How about using heat distortion? I have no idea what that actually means, but I hope that you do.
It's refraction, like you see when the straight lines aren't straight because there's heat between you and the object.
It's actually not a bad idea. The issue that I have with it is that you can't really, you can't properly control the distortion. It will always be very, very much, which means if you are far away from an object, like you're playing on a ground map and Adria isn't really very big, so if you are in your normal view from above, she will be a very small object, and heat distortions tend to just make it appear as a weird blob, and it will not show the proper detail, so it will make it look weird. But it is something that you could try, and it's something that you would have to try in-game then to see how it actually looks.
Well, honestly, I wouldn't even try it because in the movie she didn't really distort anything. I mean, the flames from her body.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something that you could do to, because the distortion helps you create some sort of waviness, and it can actually help to make it look more natural, and it would probably help here, but it's just the issue is that you can't really use it for something that is very small, because it won't work properly if you aren't right in her face. Alright, let's actually change something with the physics here, because I think it's a bit too... it's not enough like fire. Don't really like it, and also it just appears somewhere random. This may have something to do with the way I set it up now. With the mesh. Let's see if it's better now.
Feels like it's following the rig a bit, but the T-pause. Like some are
Yeah.
spawning.
You're right. That's probably it. So if I that makes sense, yeah. Okay, so now we're at a stage where I am often, and sometimes you just have to scrap stuff that you worked on and start anew. Now we will not be starting completely new, but let's try a different way, and instead of using the model, let's disable that on both. And increase the size a bit again. Maybe do 6. And then let's go into physics and actually let's see where it actually spawns the particle. You can actually view that when you are in the model editor. You can click on show bones and show bone names. Unfortunately, there are, if you look at the bones, there are a lot of them here. So you can actually enable and disable particles, but I mean bones, but well, there just are a lot of them. So let's disable it quickly and just reload the model, and you will see that it actually is somewhere behind her back. So let's make it in a way that it spawns closer to the ground and then engulfs her, or at least maybe behind her, in flames. And first of all, let's do it with the glow. Now we won't be moving the glow up, so what we want to do is make it so that he appears not on one place, but basically in a cylinder again. Let's make that cylinder a radius of 3 and a height of 10, maybe. And for the flames, we will... Let's actually do random... Which one is it? Box, right. And do -10 and -10, so it will start at -10. Of course, now since since the bottom is at 0 here, I will disable that so I can see more. And probably -10 could be too much. Let's test it. Oh, actually, the flames are right at the ground. Now the glow is... Yeah, we actually have to change where the glow spawns as well. So we will not be using the cylinder appearance. We will actually also use box. And let's start at -10 and do +10. Maybe not +10, +5. And for the rest, we will take maybe -3 to 3 and -3 to 3. So that way it should appear all around her. Also, let's change the appearance a bit. Maybe 50 and increase the general scale to maybe 10. And for the flames, they need to go higher. Multiple emitters on the model is also not a bad idea. You could do that, of course. So basically, what you could also do is, if you have separate meshes for things like arms and legs and something, you could put one emitter connected to that mesh. Yeah, it's a question of how much time you actually want to spend, because you would have to test again if it looks good, if it works, and there's always the question between quality and of course how many effects you can actually make, and it can take some time if you do it from scratch. Now we are doing it completely from scratch here. Normally I would use a pre-existing one and check if I can alternate it in a way, or if I can edit it in a way that it suits me. But in order to show the complete process that normally is behind creating a particle effect, I will basically show everything here. So the flames need to go higher, so what are we going to do? We are going to increase the height. Actually, the speed would be okay, so let's not increase the height of the speed. Let's instead do something similar as with the glow. Let's do -10 to 5, and let's do -3 to 3, -3 to 3, and then we have a bit of a fiery wall. Let's do increase the value a bit. Let's check it out.
It makes me think of the wall in the Ori temples.
Yeah, the wall of fire.
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed right now, you can see the individual particle, and they're still, you can see that they are round smoke particles. So let's blend them into each other a bit more by basically making the individual particles, well, less visible, or rather, let's decrease their
And could you also decrease the overall height? I think it's now much too high, and it's much higher than she actually.
Yeah. We can do that by going into physics again, and we have -10 to 5, and it seems 5 is too high. So let's
in my opinion, it would be best if the flames would end somewhere around the edge of her head.
Yeah. Let's test if 3 works. Let's see. That's still a bit high. And also it starts somewhere above the feet here. So let's actually maybe go -11 and go to until 2. Now there's another thing. If you're working with models, we are now custom fitting where the particles spawn to the model. If you later find out that the model itself was done too small, and which means that in the game you will have to increase its size to match other models in the game, you would also have to go back and then use, like I showed before, the rescale particle system dialog here to actually change the size, because otherwise the effect will be too small if you increase the model in the game itself.
Well, fortunately, that's not the case, as the model is in its final scale already.
Very nice. Yeah. Let's check. Yeah, it's maybe still a bit too high. Let's check later once I change the settings of the flames.
Okay.
Mhm.
I said okay.
Oh, okay. Let's make the flame effect itself a bit more transparent. So let's decrease the values in the colors, the color channels. Right, that's what I was looking for. 0.5 maybe, and for green, of course, also less 0.4 and 0.1. So now it already. So if you decrease the transparency, of course, you should also increase the number of particles that are spawned, and that way you can blend the different particles into each other. Let's maybe actually go even lower, 0.25, and green 0.2.
Burning Legion.
Wait, 0.05. And now let's increase the particle count, let's make it 60. And together with the glow, and maybe actually when we are in the glow, let's do a bit more green. 0.2, so that it's a bit more, so that the glow is a bit more yellow. Maybe even go in the blue channel and make it 0.1. 0.07, weird values. Okay, let's save and actually check it out in the model viewer. Yeah, okay. Doesn't look too bad, but I think the effect itself is too slow. I think it needs to rise quicker, and also, of course, we will then have to decrease the lifetime, because right now it looks like very slow flames.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's do that. We'll go into the flames again and increase the speed. Let's do maybe. Let's see how 6 looks. Let's maybe even do 10. And there will be some variation in the speed. As you can see, some of the particles will not rise as quickly, which is normal if you use random cylinder. If you want to actually have a random speed for the other axes, but a set speed for the Z axis, then you will have to use random box like we used in the initial position, and that way you can actually tell him that, well, for X it should be somewhere between -5 and +5. Well, that's of course too big, but I just wanted to demonstrate it. And then you can say, but for Z I want an exact value, I want 100. Well, that's of course much too big, but just for demonstration. Let's go back to the cylinder and
Now there's nothing left on screen.
it's too fast. Okay, let's decrease the lifetime. Let's do 1. Let's do 1. 1.5 maybe. And let's check it out on the model. I think it's better, but I think there are too few particles. Needs to be more. if you ever want to check how many particles there are on the screen, you can actually check in the lower left corner. It will show you how much particles it draws right now. So you can always have a look at how many particles there are at the same time. There isn't really a limit, but at several thousand particles at the same time, the game might actually crash. The particle editor will not, but therefore the particle editor will crash at other random times, so you never know.
Each program its own crashing parameters.
And could you make the flame more dense?
Yeah, I do that. I will see it right now in a few seconds. I increased the amount of particles that are spawned. Maybe let's do even 150. Let's increase the scale of the glow a bit and at the same time make it even less visible. Uh, 0.7. And also increase the particle count for the glow. Now it starts to get warm. Yeah, I think it already looks quite nice. What do you think?
Well, she's burning to hell, but otherwise it's...
Let's see how it looks when she walks. Maybe the flames, they are a bit too high probably, so...
Yeah, that's what I said before.
Yeah.
Could you do it like a cone? Like make it big on the ground and small when it gets up?
Well, I wouldn't really do it like that because that's not like it looked in the movie.
And I could do it, of course. I mean, you can, in general, if you increase the starting scale even more and also put a bigger value into the minimal Z position. So right now it's -11 and the maximum is 0. So it seems that this is -11 and 0 is somewhere up here. And then it would start from the ground. Of course, you could also do -11, -11, so all particles would start at -11. And if you decrease that even more than -11, they will start to come out of the ground, basically, and travel up.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. It's still a bit high, but that probably is because of the speed. So actually, yeah, some of them are really fast and then shoot out. Let's maybe change that. Do actually go to box and make it like, let's see, 1, 2, 5, and -1 to 1, -1 to 1. Let's check with our source material again to see how that looked. I mean, it's of course it depends on what you look at. See, she had some more fiery appearances than others.
Yeah,
So it's
I
very
think it
different.
depends on the moment of, because in the game, in the movie or series, she appears with a lot of flames, but when she talks and all,
Yeah,
she has less flames.
let's maybe narrow it down a bit so that it's a bit closer to her. So let's make 2 and point. -2 and 2. Okay. I think that's better. Okay. I think that's not too bad. Let's maybe check if we can. Let me try something. Let me put one in here. Just so it gets a bit more red. At least that I'm trying to do, so that when it finishes, there's a bit more red color in there.
Yeah, it is a little bit reddish now.
Yeah. What we could also try is just to have a bit more color variation in general.
Do you think it's possible to also have a bit more transparency?
Well, yeah, if we decrease the color, it gets more transparent. So now it's a bit more red. So, I added a bit of color variation for the red channel so that some of them have a bit more red than others. Let's quickly save. If I do that, I don't really need to change anything here, so let's maybe remove that. Let's check on the model again. I actually think it's not bad because you can still see her quite well. It's not obstructing her.
Yeah, I agree. Could you please play? I believe it's the first idle animation, but first or second. You know what I which one I think is the.
You mean that one with her arms? Right, you will see. It in just a second.
Indeed, with the one with the arms.
Nice. I like it. I will know a special someone. I know a special someone who will also very much like that.
I think I know who you mean, but now I noticed that there is some issue with her sleeve, with her left sleeve. I will have to check it and.
Yeah, that's true. There's one of the polygons seems to be.
Yeah, out of the skin selection.
Seems to be unaffected by gravity. It's a magic polygon.
It's not magic. She used her cosmic powers.
Yeah. But just for this one.
To confuse us.
It's also a lot of power to do just one. So think of the power necessary to move two.
Yeah. I also very much like the fly animation. Seems like she just disappears.
What do you like?
There's a fly animation where she just disappears. I think it's meant for teleporting her, which
no, it's meant basically instead of her, there appears a proxy with the flaming animation, and basically she turns into a fireball and flies through the map, and then you can select the point where she lands.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, but in the Allo viewer it looks really strange, but in the game it looks normal.
Yeah, that's probably because I think it uses a proxy that has smoke, which is affected by wind, and by default, wind is enabled. So that's why we check. I think it was that one. Yeah, and there's smoke there that is affected by wind. If we actually set it to 0, it should stop, but it doesn't. Oh, it does. It does. It's just a very slow effect. Let's see how her die animation looks like. Nice.
Nice. I love how she dies.
Nice. Okay. I think that's good for now. And actually, let us do a short break. and then we'll have a look at another particle effect.
Okay.
Hello, and we're back.
Hello again.
Hey.
Okay. Next, we will do something out of a Michael Bay movie. We will do a ground hit effect of the Al-Kesh cannon. So basically, let's check again. What material do we have? We have like this. Al-Kesh shoots at an attack, and there's a nice explosion and a flash, and we will be doing something similar. So this time we won't be starting from scratch. We will actually take a pre-existing particle effect, and we will check that out. Basically, what I'm having here is an effect from the Death Glider and the cannon of the Death Glider. So it's just a short hit. It throws up some debris and some dirt, and there's a nice impact. So for the Al-Kesh cannon, we need to have it a bit more oomph, I think. So maybe we actually have to have an actual explosion involved. So let's actually check our explosion textures again. And let's maybe use the second one here, explode 2. So what I'll do is I'll create a new emitter, and I'll change the texture to explode 2. And I will for now disable all other emitters, and let's actually call it explosion. And right now, if I try to preview it, I won't see anything. That's because the texture itself basically now consists of 4 textures. No, out of 16 textures. So this is one texture which is divided by 4 rows and 4... Yeah, it's divided by 4. So there are 16 textures or 16 segments to this texture. And that means we will have to tell the particle editor that the texture that we will be using now has 16 elements. So we can do that in the appearance and put in 16. If you have a texture that is just one complete texture, you will put in 1 if there are not separate elements in there. But here we have 16 elements, and so we will put in 16. And now if we take a look, we still won't see much. Right, now we'll see something. So now it actually takes the first frame of the animation and displays it. That's because it still, by default, uses index 0, and index 0 is the first element of the texture. So we'll have to go through all the different texture elements up to 16, which means we will have to go from index 0 up to index 15. So at the end of our animation, we will put in 15, because the index starts at 0 and so it ends at 15. And then we will have to set the way that this is animated to linear interpolation, so it will go linearly through all of the different indices from 0 up to 15. There are other ways. There's, for example, smooth interpolation, which isn't useful really here, but it can be useful when you are animating the way that the color of the texture behaves over its lifetime. Before, we only used really linear animations, but it can be used to smooth things down. So smooth interpolation means that there will be a sharp increase or decrease, and also a sharp end. Let's actually demonstrate that by putting a keyframe here and setting it to smooth. So linear means it will go down to 50 and then immediately go up to 100 in a linear fashion, and to smooth it out means it will just go faster in the middle and then smooth out, and then it goes faster again. It's just used to yeah, differently animate textures. So let's put it away for now. So now we have an animation. Let's actually start immediately by rotating it randomly so that it doesn't always look the same. We can do that by adding a fixed rotation, setting it to 180, which is the maximum value, and to a variation, so the second value is the variation, of 100%, and now it should be rotated differently every time. So that works quite nice. Now if we enable the others again, as you can see, there's a different symbol here and the other effects don't appear. This is because by default, if you add a new emitter, then the generation, the type of generation will be to continuous stream, so it will create one particle every second. The others are set to bursts, and a burst just means you can set how many bursts you want. In this case, it's just one burst. It will create 4 particles with that one burst, and then it will never appear again. So burst is something that you would use for something like this, where it's just something gets hit, something explodes, and this only happens once. Whereas, for example, as we had before with a fire, that's something that goes on continuously, so there you would use a continuous stream of particles. So let's do the same for the explosion. Let's put it to a burst. Let's do one burst and one particle, and then let's see how this actually looks together with the others. Now, as you can see, the explosion is very small, so let's increase the size now. And let's do 150. It has the right size, but it's a bit choppy, as you can see, which just that's just because there are only 16 frames here, basically. In theory, one could create more or bigger textures with more frames. For example, you could do 8x8, then you would have 4 times more frames, and you could do smoother animations. What we can do here is blend different textures into each other. So right now the explosion is a bit bright anyway, so let's maybe decrease its overall brightness, and therefore, like we did before, just make double the amount of particles. And what we can also do is just make it quicker in general. So let's do that by decreasing the lifetime to maybe 0.7, and then it's already smoother. What we can also do in general, what I would like to do is make more explosions, but blend them into each other. So maybe let's do even less than that. Let's do 0.225, and let's start to spread the different explosions out a bit, because right now they are all at the exactly same position. Actually, 0.25 is maybe a bit, that's not enough really. And let's increase the amount. And now let's do a random cube of 10 maybe. No, that's not really much. 50. Something weird is happening with the rotation here. And of course, make it maybe the minimum scale of 50 so that the different particles a little bit of different sizes. Maybe also do, although here it's not really that useful. And let's see how it looks with the rest. Now there's one thing that I stated last time, and that is that as you can see, there's weird smoke here. I think it's that one. So this is weird pointy smoke. Now this is actually meant to look different. It is meant to look like this, going upwards, as debris that is yeah, being pushed up because of the explosion. But unfortunately the particle editor can't handle tails and wait, actually disabled the wrong one. No. So it's meant to look like this, basically going upwards. The particle editor can't really handle tails and rotation, so it will not show the tail in a proper way. In the game it would always look like this, pointing upwards, but as soon as you rotate the particle editor will also in the preview rotate the entire effect, including the tail that it displays. So it will look like this. But this is something that you will have to test in-game to see if it looks correctly and nice in-game. Let's test that for now. With the explosion, of course. What we also may want to do is increase the general lifetime of the different effects, because it's a very quick effect right now. Maybe check with that, the smoke. So right now it's just one burst, but the explosion takes quite a while until it's finished, so it would be nice if the other effects would be displayed longer, or maybe what we could do is just increase the time that the different effects are spawned. So instead of just doing one burst, we could do, for example, 3 with, let's maybe do 0.2 seconds apart. Wait, of course not in the explosion. I don't want to do that here. I want to do that in the smoke, for example. And also, I already have set an initial spawn delay for the smoke. Let's increase that so that the smoke shows up earlier. Let's do it too. Oh wait, no, that's wrong. I didn't mean the spawn delay, I meant its skip time. And also, let's try and not increase the scale, just... No, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, this is again a lot of trial and error to try and make it look right.
It's really fun to see how it evolves and how it gets more and more what you imagine it would be.
Yeah, there's a lot of trial and error involved, and sometimes I get back to effects and think, well, that's sometimes I know of better ways, or I can think of better ways to do it. So I get back to some effects and do them differently. Okay, so this is the light flash in several different variants. And of course I didn't properly name them.
Isn't it what you said last week to properly name everything the most important?
I did. Oh wait, what did I do here? Didn't mean to do that.
See, I remember, but apparently not everyone.
Yeah, sometimes if you just add something and you don't actually properly name it because you want to do it quick, but it comes around to kind of bite you in the ass because the next time you're in the particle, you have to guess what it is and you have to deactivate everything and just activate the one thing that you want to see. That's an interesting explosion.
Yeah, and I know why you forget to name it at first. You're like, oh, I have to think of this, and you're too much in your thought of doing the thing. You do it, and you finish doing it, and just you don't rename it because you didn't do it at first, and we're like, I will do it later, but you didn't. And next time you come back, oh,
yeah, and then you forget. Yeah. So I'm increasing the general lifetime of the different light flashes, just so that it just takes a bit longer. And let's see how that all looks together. Well, not with this one. I think actually the explosion takes too long. Let's actually test it without the ground to see how it looks. So there's the mouse dropping and BAM! Oh, well. I actually think that the smoke, I think it needs to be a bit darker so that there's more contrast between the smoke and the explosion. Let's try that. 0.1 maybe. Oh, that was really dark, yeah. And maybe make it a bit bigger, but also maybe less particles. Let's do 2. And I think, oh, there is no random rotation now. And let's fade it in and out as well. Maybe let's fade it in very quickly and fade it out more slowly. And also let's do the same thing as with the explosion and make this into a sphere. What did we do in the explosion? Oh, we did a cube. Why did I do a cube? Oh, interesting. And with the smoke as well. Let's see how it looks. Oh. Okay, I should save now because it seems like the editor is about to crash.
The square sprites indicators of crashing.
Yeah, it often means that it's about to crash. It seems it lost. Didn't I just save? It seems that it lost again the knowledge of where the textures actually lie. So let's just restart that.
So it might be a memory issue, like the editor is leaking memory or having memory loss.
It's possible. It has been open quite a long time, and it actually didn't crash before, so it was open the entire time that we had to stream, which is already impressive because normally in such a long time it will crash. Which is why we should always save a lot.
Anyway, on computer, whatever happened, saving is always the smart move. Save.
True. Yeah, definitely.
I work on Maya for 3D in my school, and it crashes so often. It's impressive. I don't understand how an unstable program can be so much used in the industry.
And have it ever happened to you, Ellie, that during the save process the program crashed?
It's rare, but it happens once.
Because basically that you corrupted the file. And basically you should lose it.
Yeah, that's why you don't just save a file, you increment the save. So you have save 1, save 2, save 3. And
that in that case it works like in Creo.
in Creo?
Yes, it creates iterations.
Yes, it's exactly this. That's the only annoying part of doing all this is it's easy to lose hours of work if you don't pay attention and if you don't save often.
Yeah, I think the impact looks really great.
Yeah, I'm still tweaking it a bit, and I think I'll actually make it completely black. Yeah. Here's the alpha channel. Ah, okay. Well, maybe then let's do it like... let's do 0.2 and... Oh, why not? Let's check. How many particles are there? 10. Okay. And let's also save right now because I'm about to do something that will crash the particle editor very often. I will copy this and I will paste this, and it's possible that if I preview it now, it will crash. It didn't. Very nice. At least not yet. We never know. So let's not let this face camera. Also, let's just spawn maybe 2.
We have a question. How do you make an effect that is affected by terrain?
Yeah, I can show you that shortly. I will just finish the one emitter here. Actually, let's rename it. And let's do exact, and let's do 3. Okay. So what I've done now is, if I disable everything except smoke up there, as you can see, it's intersecting with the terrain, but because, and this is one way to hide that, because it's set to a random sphere for the position, there will be several particles in a circle, and they will hide the intersection with the ground from each other a bit. And you can improve that by basically taking another variant of it and setting in appearance the rendering always face camera to no, so basically disable that, and that way it will lie basically flat on the floor like this. So if I view it from above, I can see it. Yeah, so basically you then have to make it a bit higher on the Z-axis so that it comes out of the ground, and in most cases those two things together, if I now activate it, you won't see the intersection that much with the ground, and it just makes it look better. The same thing could be done for the explosion, because the explosion is the same thing. If it hits the ground, it will intersect with the ground and have these weird jarring lines. So let's save first, and then copy and paste, and again let's call this ground. Then set the appearance to not always face camera, and let's do this, and maybe just 2, and also, what did I set here? 3. Let's do also 3. Let's maybe only do 1 then. Yeah, it doesn't work quite as well here, because there are very distinct features in the texture, so you can see that the texture, if you look from a very shallow angle, you can see that the texture is of course lying flat on the ground. But at least from the higher angles, like I mean, it's an strategy game, so you would see it from this angle, and you don't have these very jagged edges anymore. Alright.
I would say it looks perfect.
Yeah.
But in the question he asked is like, what happens if the turn is really bumpy?
Yeah.
Or if it has river?
So I will save this now, and I will demonstrate you with a new one. So let's make this appear somewhere like on maybe higher. Let's do 50. So now it's floating in the air. We will make it live a bit longer so that we can demonstrate this better, and we will set the speed to, or actually let's do a gravity acceleration. Maybe a bit more, so that we actually see something. So right now, this basically represents the terrain here. You can activate it and deactivate it. This is not only used for visibility purposes, but also to demonstrate the physics that you can do with the particle effect. So right now, if you look below the ground, you will see the particles will fall right through. We can set ground behavior here. So right now it's set to none. We can make it disappear. So as soon as it intersects, it will disappear. So when it's in the middle, basically, it will disappear. This can be coupled with child emitters on death. So you can let the emitter the particle, as soon as it disappears, spawn another particle. So, for example, this could be a raindrop, and as soon as it lands on the ground and intersects, there could be a splash. The other modes that we have is bounce. So bounce will mean that it will retain some of the momentum. You can actually set a percentage of how bouncy it should be. So you can say, when you set it to 1, it will mean it will be it will jump exactly as high as it started. And maybe let's actually do some random radius so that you can see that better.
Oh, we misunderstood his question. He was asking if you are able to make rivers inside the particle editors, rivers that wouldn't be accessible in the map.
Ah, okay. Well, you could kind of do it. So, what you could do is, I mean, this is similar. You could actually do bounce like 0.1, and that way it will basically follow the ground. I think I did something like that before. Let me check if I can find it. I think it was P. Let me actually search for it. I think it was waterfall or something, yeah. So, well, this looks weird because the particles aren't really loaded right now. But basically this is the same. It's actually bouncing with a value of 0 from the ground. And that way it means that if you would have in the map like a crevice or a riverbed, and you would spawn the particles there, it would theoretically follow the river downstream. So you could use it for something like waterfalls, and you could potentially use it for rivers as well, but it's very hard to do the effect right, and it will probably also be a lot of trial and error on the map to get it to follow the way that you want it to. But in theory, I mean, you could try it. It could actually work. The thing probably is that I think particle effects are only spawned as long as the emitter that spawns is in the viewport, is viewable. So once it's out of the viewport, when the camera goes somewhere else, then at some point new particles will not be spawned, which means the stream of water would suddenly end. What you could do, and I think we tried that on, or we have that on one map as well, is to actually place several emitters on the map. So you could start at one point, set an emitter with this stream, and keep in mind this has a speed. So if you rotate the emitter, right now it's on the z-axis downwards, but if you rotate the emitter in the map editor, you could actually let it flow horizontally, and that way you could, with several emitters on several places, create the illusion of a continuous stream.
But I suppose normal water or sea or anything like that is basically done only in the map editor, right?
Yeah, so normal rivers are basically just it's done in the map editor. I think, I don't know if there was a new version of the map editor on GitHub, because the guy who created the mod tools made some bug fixes, and I don't know, I think, because I'm not a mapper, but I think in the original map editor you couldn't actually create rivers, but it's possible that in the new version you can do that. I'm not entirely sure about that, but that's something you could check out. Let me actually... Now that I see it, I'm interested to see how it looks like. Because I haven't opened that effect in a very long time. P particle master. This should be it. It doesn't properly load the particles for some reason. Oh, okay, yeah. That's what I thought, because I heard that you can't create rivers in the map editor. So, yeah, that's sad.
That's too bad, because I want to make a river. I want to have P3X888, and I want to have this big river, and around it a native go-out symbiote.
Yeah. But really, we should check out the new versions on GitHub. Maybe he actually activated it there, so you could do it. I'm not sure, but it's worth checking out. Let's actually take that effect. I will put it into the yeah, we can actually test it right now, because I overwrote the old one anyway. So the correct one is in there already.
So you will go in-game?
Yes, we will try that in-game. And we will take a look at how it looks then. 1 second.
Yeah, King Leto, that was the idea, to actually simulate the P3X888 and the giant river that was there, which was full of go-out larvae in their native environment. That's one of the dreams I have, that I would actually I would be glad to make them come true. I think I have played this game before.
Very recognizable. So if you have any more questions, now is the right time to ask them. Oh, this is
and it could be a general question, not just a question about the particles, but whatever you have in mind.
And don't worry about the German in my game.
Ich spreche Deutsch, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch.
Guys, I'm at lection 3, so please, no German.
Don't worry, it's been so long that I can mainly say this and ein Bier bitte.
Now you can say what?
Ein Bier bitte.
Only ein?
Well, you could say more, but it's the phrase I learned the most.
Well, it's true. When I was in Krefeld and I ordered 2 beer at once, the lady was very skeptical. But when I drank the first one in basically one breath, she understood.
I mean, beer is universal. The power of beer.
I see that in your version you don't have all the textures.
I don't know what you mean.
Don't you see the green guys?
Oh yeah, that's true. But
Ah,
is that only in my version? Because I thought that was...
Yes,
Oh.
that's only in your version. Believe you me.
Okay.
Those are raid soldiers. They have their textures quite a long time now, and the effect is really nice.
just one thing, isn't clone going to be exploding because you're showing premium stuff?
I think it's a bit overkill, so I don't think this will be the final version of it, because it's a bit extreme. But I mean,
You know what? No. If you switch and use this explosion for the bombardment of the Alkesh, I think that would be great.
yeah, I think I set both of them to the same particle right now, so this should also apply to the bombs.
Theoretically, the cannon could have the same effect as the glider. Gosh, lately I kind of have problem with my memory.
I have the same. I have the same issues. Thinking about words. Ah, okay. Of course, I've overwritten that one, but okay. Let's check what the bombardment actually has. So, are there any more questions? I don't think so. I don't see any new questions.
Neither do I.
No question.
Nice. Oh.
I
It actually fits nice to the bombs. It's the same particle effect right now. That's true.
the effects look cool. Someone want to check all the secret stuff we have?
There's no
Oh
secret
my
stuff.
god, did you see that? The bombardment fleet was followed and almost entirely destroyed by those two Aura fighters.
Yeah, I saw it.
I really did not see that coming.
Here is actually what I was talking about before. This is the waterfall effect that I showed. And there are basically several emitters in there and also on the ground. And I think it's also the ground is colored blue, I think, so that it looks a bit more like a river. So this is a way to fake a river. It doesn't look as good, but I mean, it works quite nice.
Well, the waterfall looks okay, I guess.
Yeah,
And
it
for
looks
me,
really nice.
it's more like the rest of the water. It miss just maybe something, but it looks quite good otherwise.
Yeah.
By the way, George, what you wrote is exactly what I have in mind regarding those blood larvae. That's one of my dreams for the game.
Let's destroy this balloon.
You know what? You use the dead glider just to see the explosion from its cannon.
I unfortunately have overwritten the original one, which isn't a big issue thanks to version management. But right now it will have the same effect as the Alkesh. Oh wow, it gets really destroyed by that Ori, by those Ori forces.
Hell are the Ori.
Yes.
Destroy it! Okay, let's see. How can we aggravate that? that balloon.
Why do you spawn the probes?
They are fast. Or, no, they are not fast. Why are they so slow? I thought they were faster.
And what exactly do you want to do with them?
I want to harass the balloon.
Wouldn't it be better if you use some AA unit, like the Horus Guard?
Maybe. Aww. Well,
Though I don't speak German, I kinda know what that message was.
oh, so sad it didn't make it, so I couldn't show it. Well,
Fun is over.
fun is over. I'm sorry. This is it.
Someone wanted to see the Coal Warriors.
Well, let's actually do that next time. I can use that as an excuse because I think they need a hit effect as well. So let's use this as an excuse to show the Cull Warriors next time. But don't tell anyone.
Yes.
Alright guys. Yeah, thanks for attending the stream. And I will try to start one soon. Show some new stuff as the Cull Warrior maybe. Yeah. Thanks guys. See you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.